Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. We are taking a look today at the Columbus Blue Jackets and former head coach John Tortorella parting ways. We'll be taking a look at the Jackets in this video, so let's get right into it. So this morning, the Columbus Blue Jackets public relations on Twitter released news. Hashtag CBJ and head coach John Tortorella have mutually agreed to part ways. Tortorella is the winningest coach in Blue Jackets history, guiding the club to a 227, 166, and 54 record, which adds up to a .568 points percentage in 447 games over 6 seasons with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Not to mention that this team has had a unheralded amount of success under John Tortorella. You look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's see. I'm so bad at math. 3, 4, 5. And this season, I guess you could say. So they don't have this season counted, but in the past 6 seasons under John Tortorella, they've made the playoffs 4 of those 6 seasons. They lost in the first round to Pittsburgh. They lost in the first round to Washington. They went to the second round after, stunning the Tampa Bay Lightning a couple years back in 2019. They won in the qualifying round to the Leafs, inevitably losing to the Lightning, and they missed the playoffs this year. So this is a Columbus Blue Jackets team that, kind of is in a state of a transition, because we know a couple years back, they obviously lost guys like Artemi Panarin and Sergei Bobrovsky, and we didn't see there were still lingering players around like Nick Foligno and David Savard that stuck around for a couple more years. Well, now, obviously, we know at this year's trade deadline, they have since moved on, and whether they return or not in the offseason is, at this point, it doesn't really matter. The Blue Jackets are going to have a major shift in the direction of their franchise. And yes, they have had a little bit of success recently, but I think they see that there is a clear need for more talent on this team. You look at this team, and Jarmo Kekalainen, I think, realizes too. You lose the amount of talent that they have over the last couple of years. Now you're talking about, they lost Pierre-Luc Dubois. Yes, they did get Patrick Laine, but this is a different Jackets team. And the amount of guys that they brought in, guys like Texier, and, they've had some additions along the way, guys like Sonny Milano, but they haven't had the success that they were hoping for. And I think they realize whether they stay in this Central Division the way it is right now, or they go back to the Metropolitan Division, there isn't going to be any sort of leeway. The Blue Jackets, if you keep them in the Central, they obviously don't make the playoffs like we saw this year. The Nashville Predators got that final playoff spot. And you look in the Metro, it's probably even more terrifying. You have the Islanders, the Rangers, who are on the rise, and you could argue probably could have made the playoffs in another division. You have the Capitals, the Penguins, and the Philadelphia Flyers, if they could get their course going again. And not to mention the New Jersey Devils. So where does Columbus sit in a regular Metropolitan Division? Are they the worst team in that division? So those are the kind of things that, if I'm a Blue Jackets fan, if I'm Jarmo Kekalainen, the GM, I have to be thinking to myself, we need a little bit of a change. And with the situation that happened this year, it's a little bit cataclysmic. This team did not do well by any sort of measure. They really struggled this season. You look at some of the guys that they brought in, they were really hoping that some of these guys could turn around with the Blue Jackets, and it just didn't happen. Unfortunately, what's actually quite funny, I really thought last year's deal with the Montreal Canadiens, we saw Josh Anderson, who had been injured, riddled with injuries and couldn't stay in the Blue Jackets lineup, get traded to the Montreal Canadiens for Max Domi, who was, a former top 5 overall draft pick. back in 2015 or 2016. A really talented player, just never really found it in Arizona or Montreal. And you thought in Columbus that he could really turn around his career. He'd be a center in CBJ and he'd get his career back. And that did not really happen. You look at the top point producers for Columbus, Oliver Bjorkstrand led the way with 44 points this season. Cam Atkinson and Jack Roslovic each had 34. Seth Jones, Patrick Laine, only 24 points for Patrick Laine this season. Really disappointing for him in 46 games. I'll be talking about him. Max Domi, 24 points as well, alongside Patrick Laine. They both produced the same amount of points. A very disappointing season for both of them. Zach Werenski, Eric Robinson, Boone Jenner, Alex Texier, Michael Delzato, and the list goes on. But this team, like I said, more in particular, those two guys in particular, Patrick Laine and Max Domi. And I made a video a couple weeks back, and a lot of you guys were mentioning, give up all the first round picks and pick up Jack Eichel. And I do not agree with that. Especially right now, I just don't necessarily agree with that. And even if I'm the Buffalo Sabres, I don't know if I even accept that. Because they have the guys that they could build around. You have Jack Eichel as your main piece, build around him. And I think that's really what the Sabres are going to do. I know we've heard rumors about him going to LA, the Rangers, maybe even Columbus. I don't see that happening. But if a team were to look at Jack Eichel, it would be the Columbus Blue Jackets. So you guys do have a point. But the problem is you look at some of the long-term issues here. So you have Bjorkstrand, right? He's locked in. That's good. That's your top point producer. You keep Oliver Bjorkstrand. That's easy. Cam Atkinson, you keep him. He's making a little bit too much money, but again, he's had some injuries and stuff, so okay, whatever. Jack Roslovic, he's fit in well under John Tortorella. I think he's going to be a little bit disappointed that Tortorella will be leaving the Blue Jackets, but this is a good opportunity for other guys to maybe see a change of scenery. Like I said, Max Domi, I don't think he's going to stay with the Blue Jackets. And Patrick Laine, does he stick around in Columbus? Now, the reason that I could see them sticking around is if the Blue Jackets bring in another head coach, which they are doing. They are letting go of John Tortorella. His contract is set to expire. And I made a video a couple weeks back about Seth Jones. Him being the next captain in Columbus. But the way John Tortorella worded it is a little bit odd. Here, let me pull it up. Because John Tortorella kind of mentioned, I might have deleted it. But basically, John Tortorella had mentioned that, if I was that, he would say, it was something to the effect, let me see if I could find it. This is bothering me now. I apologize for this, guys. Let's take a look. Man. All right. Yeah, of course. Of course I can't find it. Well, let's put it this way. It was something to the effect that, John Tortorella had mentioned, I would make Seth Jones the captain of the Blue Jackets. And the way he worded it was weird because, well, if he's the head coach, shouldn't he be able to announce that Seth Jones would be the next captain of the team? And they didn't announce him as the captain. Now, obviously it had to do with maybe the end of the season. They just wanted to wait till the offseason to announce him as the captain. But the way John Tortorella worded it, it was almost like he didn't even have the power, if he wanted to make Seth Jones the captain of the Blue Jackets. And now that we've seen Seth Jones will hopefully be staying in Columbus, you wonder if that had something to do with John Tortorella. Now, John Tortorella may have been a factor in them with their Seth Jones situation because they have to re-sign Seth Jones this offseason. He is a unrestricted free agent going into the 2022 or summer of 2022, which is next summer. So Columbus may decide this summer, hey, we got to lock up Seth Jones, one of our best defensemen, and Zach Werenski isn't far away. We're going to have to lock him up as well. So let's get a new head coach in here. Let's let them see the new direction of this team, and that way we could re-sign our two best defensemen, probably the best defensive pairing in the league, and make sure that's locked down, and then we'll worry about everything else after. Guys like Patrick Laine, Max Domi, and everything else. So like I said, they've got some draft picks in this year's first round. Take those draft picks and run with them. Especially with this year's draft, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a guy like R2 Ratu start to slip in this year's draft. If he slips toward the back of the first round, like we saw a guy like, I don't know, Joe Veleno a couple years back, maybe you snipe him at the end of the first round with one of Toronto or Tampa Bay's first round picks. Because as we look further and further here, R2 Ratu is, from the first overall pick last year to now maybe a late, maybe even early second round first draft pick or second round draft pick. And I could see him slipping to the Columbus Blue Jackets. And the Blue Jackets have a couple of draft picks. They have some draft capital. And they may say, you know what, let's take a chance on this R2 Ratu kid. And I would have to assume they'll select a center with their first pick in the first round, whether that's a guy like William Eklund or Matthew Beniers. We're probably going to see a forward with that pick. Unless they decide to go with a goaltender, which I think they like Merzlikins and Korpisalo. I think they're going to decide one of those guys this summer. That's another topic of discussion. If this goaltender, Wallstead, if he does slip to the end of the first round, I would have to think Columbus would be in on that. But even not, again, this sounds like a little bit more of an NFL move, but maybe the Blue Jackets decide to move up in the draft to select one of those, to select a guy like Jesper Wallstead with maybe the 15th overall pick. Let's say Wallstead is still on the board and the 15th overall pick is available. Maybe we see a move get done there, and maybe we see a team like the New York Rangers maybe fall back, pick up more draft picks, and give a guy like Jesper Wallstead to the Blue Jackets. We could see that sort of deal work out here for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And like I said, they have the draft capital. If the Blue Jackets wanted to, they could make that deal work. So, like I said, I think it's going to be an interesting summer. There's a lot of different things that we could see the Blue Jackets do. Like I said, they're going to probably get a new head coach. I wonder if the Arizona Coyotes let go of Rick Tocchet, if that's a guy that the Blue Jackets look at. Or maybe a guy like former Vegas Golden Knights Gerard Gallant. Does he draw interest? Maybe Mike Babcock. I think those are some of the front runners for the Blue Jackets head coaching vacancy. I'll probably make an entire video just talking about that. But like I said, the head coach situation, like I said, you got to look at head coaching. That's one thing for the Blue Jackets, Kekalainen. Another thing is goaltending. Which goaltender are you going to keep? Are you going to keep Corpy or are you going to keep Elvis? That's another thing that the Blue Jackets have to decide this summer. And if you decide which guy you're going to get rid of, where you're going to bring him, and what assets are you going to get in return for that said goaltender. That's the second thing. The third thing, I'm pairing these two together, is the Patrick Laine, Max Domi thing. What are you going to do with those two players? Do you trade Patrick Laine before he gets an offer sheet this summer? Or do you see if maybe someone throws an offer sheet at him, nobody gives him an offer sheet, and he decides to go to arbitration, or they just work out a deal? And Max Domi. Do they decide to trade Max Domi before the trade or before free agency just to get some assets for him because they don't want him back? Or do they look to trade it for maybe a center somewhere that just isn't working out? Maybe they could try and do that once again. Or maybe they look to add a defenseman with Max Domi. They could do that as well, right? So, and then the other thing, and this is a big thing as well, is their defense. What are they going to do with Seth Jones and Zach Werenski? Are they going to sign them to long-term extensions this offseason? Or are they going to wait during the season next year or next offseason to, in desperation mode to make sure those guys are locked up? Or do we even see a situation where Seth Jones gets traded for a center, which is kind of a, what's the word for that? It's kind of ironic because the Blue Jackets traded a center in Ryan Johansson to the Nashville Predators to acquire a defenseman in Seth Jones. So now they're doing the flip-flop. I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing for the Blue Jackets. It's one of those things where it's, do you trade a thing that you're good at to equal out, to balance out your roster, or do you just, continue what you have, which is really good, and try to add on to that? And I think that's really the better situation. But we have heard the rumors of a Seth Jones trade, and if Seth Jones doesn't sign this summer, does Jarmo Kekalainen say, listen, if you don't sign this summer, you are going to get traded because we can't afford to lose you next year, or at the trade deadline scrambling and a team catches us, in a spot where we're going to get less for you. So we're going to trade you now, or you have to re-sign. And they maybe put Jones in that situation, and that brings up a whole other discussion of them maybe trading Seth Jones this summer. So, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I know I mentioned a lot in this video. I usually try and break the video down to make it a little bit smaller, but I just think there's so much to talk about in Columbus right now. And I think it could make for an interesting summer for the Blue Jackets. And like I said, I think you've got some good pieces there. You've got guys like Texier who are really solid. You have a good goaltending tandem when it works. You have a good defense in Seth Jones and Zach Werenski. You just need to build around that. And they have some things they have to figure out. Kekalainen has to be a little bit reeling right now, especially with how things have worked out this year. Is his job potentially on the line as well? So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I blabbered on enough about the Jackets in this video. I've got the Blue Jackets jersey. I think that's part of it. I think I look good in a Blue Jackets jersey. I got this earlier this week. So guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below of the Blue Jackets. What kind of moves could you see the Blue Jackets do this summer? Do you think they trade for Jack Eichel? Do you think they trade Seth Jones? Let me know your thoughts down below. And if you guys like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey and want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and let's go Jackets.